Your shoulders do a lot of the work in swimming. You have a huge range of movement at the shoulder and it's put under significant force repetitively for every stroke of front crawl. Therefore, it's no surprise that problems in the shoulder area are the most common injuries for swimmers. Well, we're going to be covering the cause of swimmers' shoulders and more importantly, looking at how to solve it and ultimately how to prevent it. Swimmer's shoulder is one of those broadly used terms, a little bit like runner's knee. It's basically pain in the shoulder area that results from swimming. Now, admittedly, we don't do anywhere near as many miles in the pool as swimmers do, but as triathletes, we still need to look after our shoulders. Now, I'm going to take a look at the anatomy, but I'm going to try not to get too sciencey for you because there are actually several joints at the shoulder, which allows it to have movements in all of the directional planes. And as a result, you do need to have all of the muscles and the tendons around there coordinating and working together to make sure you don't get any problems. When people talk about the shoulder joint, they're often referring to the glenohumeral joint, this joint here. Now, it's a ball and socket joint, a little bit like the hip, but it is much shallower, which basically allows for a lot more range of movement. But with that range of movement comes the need for more control. So you get a lot of muscles and tendons around this joint. Problem being, these tendons run through this small gap here. And now if they do start to get inflamed, they can pinch, and then once they start pinching, it becomes more inflamed and it can become a vicious circle. But there are several reasons for shoulder pain, not purely at this joint, but at all the other joints as well. So we're going to be focusing more on what causes the pain in the first place and then looking at how to prevent that pain. Let's start with the most obvious cause, poor swimming technique. So when it comes to the recovery phase, if you're bringing your elbow too close to your ear as it comes through, you're going to be naturally pinching your shoulder and the tendon areas here. So try to make sure you've got a relaxed, slightly wider recovery as you come over. Then it comes to the entry. Make sure that once your hand is in, you're not trying to pull straight down, fully extended, because your shoulder is not really designed to do that and it's not strong in that position. The same goes for if you make your hand too far out wide or your thumb is pointing down. All of this will put your shoulder under unnecessary strain. So really concentrate on technique. And then the muscles around this part of your shoulder are relatively small, so they're not going to be that strong. So you want to make sure you are engaging those larger muscles to help propel you forwards, such as the latissimus dorsi, aka the lats. You've probably heard of it. It is the muscle powerhouse. You need to be engaging that one and using that, but more on that one later on. Before we move on to the strengthening part, we need to talk about posture and activation, the less sexy parts of strength and conditioning, but equally, if not more important. So if you imagine you spend a lot of the time hunched over, sat at your desk or out on your TT bike, you're going to be in that thoracic curve for your spine, and that's automatically going to cause this part of your joint, your glenohumeral joint, to be just internally rotated and already putting it under more pressure, and it can cause pinching at the front of the capsule. And then if you go from this position to expect to be able to swim, well, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage. And if you are in a curved position, you're going to have to extend even more from the shoulder to get a full reach when it comes to the front crawl stroke. Let's start by mobilizing the thoracic spine. You just need a foam roller for these two exercises. The first one, if you lie on your back and you put the foam roller underneath your thoracic spine, so the middle part of your back, and you're just going to roll yourself up and down it, trying to increase that extension through your back. You might feel a few clicks, but there's nothing wrong with that. And then once you feel that's nice and loosened off, turn over onto all fours, put the foam roller lengthways underneath you, and then having your weight in your knees and one of your hands, take your other hand and just rest it on top of the foam roller as you rotate underneath through to the other side. And this will really help with rotation of the thoracic spine. Make sure you do it in both directions. And then any other exercises that just help to mobilize that middle part of your spine will be doing it good. Another joint of the shoulder area we need to address is the scapulothoracic. Now you have to ignore the fact that Jerry has lost his arm here and his scapula doesn't actually move, but the joint we're talking about is where your scapula, your shoulder blade here, moves over your ribs. Now this should glide nicely. If the movement isn't happening very well here, it's going to put more pressure on the rotator cuff muscles and those at the front of your shoulder joint. So we need to activate these muscles around here. For that, you need to lie face down on the ground with your shoulders in a goal, or your arms in a goalpost position. And then just lifting your arms slightly off the ground as well as your head, just keeping your head in neutral. Squeeze your shoulder blades together, hold them as close as you can. Imagine you're trying to hold something between these two shoulder blades. Hold that for 5 seconds and then release your arms down and repeat that 5 times. You can then progress to using a band in front of you. So attach it to something that's shoulder height in standing, and then holding on, you're going to basically let your arms get pulled in by the elastic band, and then you're going to pull your shoulder blades back. So you're going to be pulling against that band, but keeping your arms straight. So you're really activating those muscles around your shoulder blades. And then another progression is face pulls. So stand on the band, and you're going to be lifting your arms up in front of you, but the whole time think you're pulling your shoulder blades back and down. Chest openers are another one that will just help with the retraction movement of your shoulder blades as well. I've mentioned the rotator cuff group of muscles already. Now basically, they are a group of muscles that allow this joint here to internally and then externally rotate. And it's important that they're all firing properly so you've got smooth movement at the shoulder. You might have previously seen swimmers on pool deck doing hours of external and internal rotation using a TheraBand. Now these exercises aren't a cure, but they do help to strengthen these muscles, although it's now thought that it's actually better to do something more like an isometric hold. So if you do go and stand next to a wall, and you just push your arm out against it, trying to activate those muscles. And the same goes for internal rotation when you're really holding and then pulling towards the wall. So just trying to really activate them, but without putting them through too much strain. Swimmers are known for having mobile shoulders, as that helps with the reach in the stroke. But having too much mobility without strength is dangerous, as I've touched on. So make sure you've done all of your activation work first. And then you can get a cord again and just get some more mobility going through your arms. You can do some side stretches, even some over the head extensions will all help, or even just some arm swings that will help get the blood flowing and everything loose. And once you are really warmed up and relaxed, you can actually focus a little bit more on some stretches, or maybe after your swimming session as well. But we have actually got a video for some more specific shoulder exercises. You can find that one in the description below. Once your scapular and thoracic region are moving smoothly and all of those smaller muscles are activated and firing, it's time to focus on those larger muscles, the lats. And this is where the cords come in handy again. You can set them up on poolside or wherever you are and actually replicate the swimming stroke, thinking of engaging these muscles. If your band isn't very stretchy, you can actually break the stroke down to the front part and then the final part. And now if you do actually have access to a gym and you want to work specifically on the lats, you can go and use the LATISSIMUS DORSI, or the lat pull down machine, which unsurprisingly focuses very much on the lats. If you don't have that, you can also use pull-ups. Now, whilst we're talking about gym, incorporating strength and conditioning or a gym session a couple of times a week can actually dramatically help your swimming strength if you make sure you target the correct muscles. Correcting your swimming technique and activating the right muscles is vital, but it's also important to make sure you build your swimming mileage up gradually, just like you would for running and cycling. And if you do incorporate all of these exercises we've already talked about, you'll give yourself that best possible chance of staying injury-free. Now, as I've mentioned, the shoulder joint, or set of joints around the shoulder, are very complex. You need to listen to your body, because once you get a little bit of inflammation in some of these tendons, it can be very hard to do any shoulder movement without aggravating it. Well, hopefully I didn't bombard you with too much science there and you've enjoyed this video. Give us a thumb up, like, and hit the subscribe button to make sure you get all of our videos. And if you do want to see some more exercises for the shoulder, I've made one on that for triathletes just down here. Or if you want some tips from an actual qualified physio, there's a video on that just down here.